Hola guys and welcome to Capture Prod, when polygons meet desire. My name's Lian and on this weekend I went on DeviantArt and finally saw ripped models from Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And here I need to insert a disclaimer for those who recently joined my channel. Once upon a time I was a huge fan of the original Death Stranding game, and for 5 years I ran a community in 6 countries dedicated to this game. It was kind of a news and content aggregator with my personal takes on various topics. But the concept and lore of the sequel completely disappointed me. I have a post on Tumblr where I explain my attitude toward the sequel. You might think, okay, if he doesn't like it, just let it be. But I have a lot of good memories tied to this game, and the fandom overall, I gave it a part of my life, plus we had an amazing community. I said it was the best community without any toxicity, and after the sequel's release, all of that basically got reset. And continue it no longer made sense. On top of that, the global community got split because there are people who absolutely love the sequel, and there is a minority like me and some other persons, and behind our backs we considered by mainstream players as idiots and losers who supposedly just like Higgs too much and don't agree with his storyline. But there are many more issues than that, which nobody wants to acknowledge. So, long story short, I don't support Kojima's sequel and whatever the hell he did there, but as someone working with 3D graphics in the field of 3D fan art, I can't help but appreciate the incredible work of 3D modelers. And overall, I don't mind working with the new rips of Sam and Higgs, because firstly, I really like this duo in the original game, and secondly, sooner or later, I have to make some content with them, with their new models, because over the past years I've kind of become a content creator for Sam Higgs 3D fan art, and because of that many social media platforms cut the reach of my works in other fandoms. In other words, if for example I made something related to Tomb Raider on platforms like X and Instagram, the reach gets brutally reduced and nobody sees it. You know, I could say it's because I'm talentless shit, but then why do I get okay reach and engagement on Tumblr for non-DS works? I don't know. And overall, the Death Stranding sequel became one of the catalysts for my current state, where I can barely force myself to communicate with people, and I can only produce this kind of monologues on YouTube. Bitter irony, of course. The original game united us and the sequel divided us. Anyway, before I get completely upset, grab some coffee, whiskey or both, and let's check the model. So today we are going to take a look at new Sam Bridges rip made by Connor UK Boy. Thank you so much for this rip, you are breathtaking. Right away we are looking at it without textures for now, because the finished file is in Marmoset toolbag and I don't have this soft. So we just load the FBX model where the textures aren't set up, check out the meshes and topology, and then I'll decide what to do with it next. So we downloaded and loaded the model in Blender. The first thing that stands out is that just a ton of armatures here, each tied to individual meshes or group of meshes, and honestly it took me about half an hour just to sort it, or at least somewhat. As far as I understand, this rip contains several variations of the model, including Sam with and without a bandana, as well as accessories, including different tier variations. Yeah, we could joke about that simulation we did recently. Because of the variations, there are duplicated hair and head models, but all of these can be sorted and the duplicated armatures can be removed because right now it's a complete mess. I really hope that someone makes a simplified XPS version because filtering through this chaos is a very thankless task. Though to be fair, I do have experience converting models from Marmoset. That's how I manually redid Sam and Bridges' suit for my projects. The first thing I want to highlight is the hair. I can say it's something incredible. The model is absolutely stunning in this regard. The head has a huge amount of so-called haircuts, flat planes, many of them duplicated of course, but the meshes are almost strand by strand, not to mention separate meshes made as individual hairs. And that's interesting. From the outside these hairs look like actual simulation hair, but in reality they are baked as microscopic planes. Amazing work. But what impressed me the most are micro hairs on the face, the so-called facial fuzz. Honestly, I still don't know how to properly shader it in Blender. Guess it's transparent but still tangible, and overall it's mainly useful for close-up. In game photo mode it looks great, but in renders it will only really work in extreme close-up or with rim light. So if I transfer this model into Character Creator, for example, I'll think twice when I even need this fuzz, since nobody will really see it. And attaching it to body is another pleasure. No. And yeah, just look how it's made. Microscopic planes. Incredible. I'll remove these tier meshes for now, they're not needed anyway, and look, similar fuzz exists on the hands too, aside from the main hair. So there is a separate mesh for thicker hair on the arms and the same fuzz. For obvious reasons the fuzz is slightly longer than on the face, and one more very important detail. There is a piece of the belly hidden under the shirt. In general, this is quite unusual for models, because typically in character design needed to keep the space under the clothing empty to avoid the body mesh clipping or showing through. I assume this was done for one of the variations where the shot is slightly raised. There is a specific piece of mesh for that. Pants are standard model, nothing interesting there. The boots are more detailed than before, now they even have hanging laces and I assume they move in simulation. I remember how before the game release everyone was simping over Tomorrow's feet, and now we're going to examine Reader's feet. And here is an interesting thing. The feet are not as detailed as hands. What I mean is, personally I would add hair around the big toe under the nail, because everyone has hair there. That would be true hyperrealism. But maybe his legs are hairless because the boots rub them off. One man once told me how his boots rubbed the one spot so much that hair stopped growing there completely. Maybe Sam has the same case, considering how in-game you can literally wear your feet raw. Or maybe it's just me being weird and staring at Reedy's feet. By the way, there is even a separate mesh for the zipper slider. Moving on, I forgot, there's another tier mesh there. Damn, how many crying variations are there? In the first version there was just one tier mesh, and yeah, his eyelid is now much more lowered. Honestly, if I transfer this model into CC4 or CC5, I have no idea how I'll handle these lines in headshot. I already struggled a lot with the previous Sam model, trying to attach eyelashes and fix the eyelid, and now I'll probably go insane. Another detail that amazed me in the eyebrows, they consist of multiple meshes. The main mesh, the unibrow, the lower part, and some extra hairs at the base. The bird is also complex. with several components, including separate hair meshes. Also wanted to mention the face topology. You know, when I reconstructed characters in CC4, the generated head mesh actually had more polygons than in original games. But here the subdivision is so strong that if I try to reconstruct his head in CC4, it'll actually be a downgrade. So next gen models probably need to be done in CC5, but I can't afford it yet. And that's it. Compared to this, the original SAM model from Death Stranding Uno now feels low poly. What I'm planning to do with all this, well, between my main work, I might throw some textures on it and maybe for the first try use the default animation. For basic shots, do a couple of renders. If people like it, we can go to a full transfer, but I'll probably wait for Sam in the suit because I likely won't be able to transfer the body into CC4 and I don't get along with DAS at all. Anyway, let me know what you think about this format, and in the next episode we'll check out Robo Higgs. Thanks for watching, take care, ciao.